All right, let's talk about something that we all face every single day: making decisions. Some are small, some are huge, but they all shape our lives. In this explainer, we're going to walk through a really powerful framework that'll help you cut through all that noise and finally choose with real clarity. Let's get right into it. Go on, think about it for a sec. We've all been there, right? That job you probably shouldn't have taken, that impulse buy, that text message you wish you could unsend. Ugh, that sinking feeling of regret is something everybody knows. But what if you could pretty much eliminate that feeling just by changing the way you make decisions? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. So, what's the secret weapon against regret? It's logical decision making. And look, this is not about becoming some kind of emotionless robot, not at all. It's actually about elevating your thinking. It's about basing your choices on cold, hard facts, on the data, and on a clear-eyed view of the future, instead of just getting swept away by the heat of the moment, by fear or excitement or what everyone else thinks. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to explore the trap of bad decisions. Then, we'll talk about how to tame all that inner noise. After that, we'll give you a full toolkit for making logical choices, show you how to future-proof those choices, and then wrap it all up with a super simple checklist you can use anytime. First up, the trap of bad decisions. You see, the core problem a lot of the time isn't the situation itself. It's how our own brains are wired to react. Believe it or not, we're often our own worst enemy when it comes to just making a clear, simple choice. So here's the fundamental battle happening inside your head. On one side, you've got emotional decisions, which are just fueled by these really powerful, immediate feelings like fear or excitement. And on the other side, you have logical decisions, driven by a steady, calm analysis of facts and what's best in the long run. Our entire goal here is to learn how to consciously shift from that first column over to the second. So how do we actually make that shift? Well, that brings us to our next section: taming your inner noise. And honestly, this is the foundational step. This is step one. Before you can even begin to analyze a problem, you have to get your own mind right. And this whole process really just boils down to three critical steps. First, you've got to untangle your feelings from the actual facts. Second, you have to tune out the endless opinions and expectations of other people. And third, you need to give yourself the space and the time to actually think clearly. Let's tackle emotions first. This one question is an incredibly powerful tool. Just ask yourself, if I felt calm right now, would the facts of this situation change? And the answer is almost always a big, fat no. The underlying reality doesn't care if you're terrified or on top of the world. This question is just a great mental shortcut to remind yourself that your emotions are signals, they're not the objective truth. Now, this next question takes on social noisehead head-on. This is a big one, because so many of our choices are shaped by what we think our friends or family or colleagues will think of us. By asking yourself this, you just strip away all that external pressure, and you get to the core of what you actually want. And that answer, it's almost always the more logical one. And finally, time. For any decision that has real weight, you've got to give yourself a bare minimum of 48 hours. Why? Because that feeling of I have to decide now, it's usually artificial. It's a trap. 2 days is just enough time for those emotional highs and lows to kind of level out, making sure you decide from a place of calm instead of, panic or wild excitement. Okay, so once your mind is clear and you've quieted that inner noise, it's time to open up your logical decision toolkit. These are the practical, hands-on, analytical tools that you can use to really dissect the problem in front of you. The very first tool is learning to define the real problem. So often, we get stuck trying to solve a symptom, kind of like looking at just the tip of the iceberg. Asking, should I quit this job? That's a surfeit question. The real problem is way deeper. Is the job actually misaligned with your goals? Is it wrecking your mental health? If you can't state the real problem in one clear sentence, you're just not ready to make a decision yet. Next up, we have outcome-based thinking. Now, instead of just getting lost in a vague story about what might happen, you need to systematically map out the potential futures. So what's the absolute best case scenario? Then, what's the absolute worst that could happen? And maybe most important of all, what is the most realistic, most probable outcome? And this leads to what might be the single most crucial question in this whole entire process. Can you live with the worst case scenario? If the honest answer is yes, then the decision is fundamentally safe. You know what your floor is. But if the answer is no,
then the risk is just too high, and you need to go back to the drawing board and come up with different options. Look, logic loves numbers, not fuzzy words. A simple little decision table like this can totally transform your thinking. Instead of just saying an option feels kind of risky, you quantify it. What's the actual probability of failure? What's the real potential downside? This forces you to compare your options based on their actual risk, not just on which one sounds more exciting. And the final tool in our kit is something called first principles thinking. All that means is breaking a really complex decision down into its fundamental truths. So if you're choosing a career, for example, you'd ignore all the fancy job titles and company hype. You'd look at the core components: the income potential, the skills you'll actually learn, the demand in the market, your future options, and of course, the stress level. You evaluate the real inputs for yourself. So now that we've analyzed the present, let's move on to our final set of principles: future-proofing your choice. This is all about making decisions that you're still going to be happy with years and years down the line. Oh, I love this one. This is the regret test, and it's like a little time machine for your brain. It helps you connect with your future self. It just cuts right through all that short-term ego and social pressure. People rarely regret things like steady progress or choosing their health over status. What they do regret is lost time. This question helps you optimize for long-term happiness. Next up, a simple but profound rule: match your decision speed to its consequences. If a choice is easily reversible, like trying a new restaurant, just decide quickly and move on. Don't overthink it. But if it's irreversible, like getting married or selling a family business, you absolutely must decide slowly and carefully. It sounds so simple, but most of us get it completely backward. And this brings us to one of the most powerful strategies of all: building your own personal rulebook. You see, truly logical people don't just think harder in the moment. No, they use preset rules to stop themselves from making emotional mistakes. These are your personal policies. They automate good decisions and protect you from your own worst impulses. All right, I know we've covered a lot of ground, so let's bring it all home with our final section: your final decision checklist. This is where we put everything together into one super actionable summary. So here it is. Before you pull the trigger on any major choice, just quickly run through this simple checklist. These 5 questions basically synthesize everything we've talked about today. If you have clear, honest answers to all of them, you can feel really confident in your final decision. And with that, we'll leave you with this. You now have the framework, you've got the tools, you've got the checklist, so think about a choice that you're facing right now in your own life. The only question left is, what decision will you make logically?